Hey guys, today I'll show you a horror TV series named 13 Terrors Part 2. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The 8th story, titled Secretly Taking Shots, begins with a student, Turk, a member of the school's photography club. This mischievous guy sets up a camera in the girls' restroom and enlists the help of some female classmates to pull off a prank. They dress up as ghosts to scare people, then post the videos online to grab attention. One day, Turk is enjoying the comments on his latest video when he's caught off guard by a punch from a tomboy. As it turns out, Tomboy has come to confront Turk for scaring her best friend, Mind, into the hospital with his prank. At that moment, a teacher emerges from under a table. After learning about the situation, he punishes both Turk and Tomboy. Tomboy is temporarily removed from her position as club president, and Turk is banned from using the club's photography equipment for the rest of the semester. That night, Turk checks Tomboy's social media posts while calling the girl who played the ghost. He asks about Mind's condition the day she was scared. According to the girl, Mind was indeed terrified, and even she was surprised by her reaction. After hanging up, Turk watches the video of Mind again and notices something strange in the mirror. Slowing down the footage, he discovers a real female ghost in the restroom stall. The next day, Turk brings his findings to the teacher, trying to argue that the real culprit behind Mind's hospitalization was a ghost, not his prank. However, the teacher dismisses him due to the blurry footage. After leaving, Turk realizes he left his USB drive at the club. When he returns, he sees the teacher comforting Mind in a suspicious manner. He quietly leaves and later confronts Mind after school, asking if a real ghost scared her instead of the one he set up. Mind denies this but seems unsure. As Turk attempts to show her the video, Tomboy pushes him away. Determined to prove himself, Turk asks the ghost-playing girl to set up the camera in the same spot again. This time, he connects the signal to his home computer, vowing to capture the ghost on film. After arriving home, Turk stayed by the computer all night. At almost 1 a.m., he finally captured footage of a girl entering a restroom stall. The stall door opened after a while, but during that time, there was no footage of her leaving the stall. Meanwhile, the teacher was in his office, reviewing the video Turk had presented earlier that day, claiming there was a ghost in the restroom. The next morning, Turk sneaked into the innermost stall of the girls' restroom. On the stall wall, he saw Mind's name written, with a heart drawn next to it with correction fluid. He was about to scrape it off when he heard the door opening. He quickly squatted on the toilet. At that moment, a thick liquid seeped through the door crack, followed by a strand of hair. Then there was a force constantly pulling at the door. Turk was nervous, afraid the door would be knocked open. But after a while, the sound disappeared and everything returned to normal. He cautiously got off the toilet and peeked outside, but saw nothing. Just as he was about to breathe a sigh of relief, he heard a soft hissing sound. In his peripheral vision, he saw a girl sitting on the toilet behind him. At this point, Turk was terrified and dashed out of the restroom, running into a girl who was coming to use the restroom. Now, Turk was in real trouble. He and the teacher were called to the principal's office. Although the teacher tried to defend him, Turk still received a suspension. In the end, the principal warned the teacher that he should know similar incidents had happened before. Although Turk was feeling down, he was even more curious about what had occurred in the past. After some searching, he found the blog of a beautiful girl called Cutie. There were many photos of Cutie and Mind together, so he left a message for Mind, asking her if the ghost she saw in the restroom was Cutie. The next day, Tomboy and Mind came to find Turk. With a pitiful look, Turk begged the girls to tell him the truth. Unable to resist his persistence, Mind told him that Cutie was once the cheerleading captain and had a close relationship with her. However, after a video of Cutie using the restroom was leaked, she couldn't bear the humiliation and terminated herself by slashing her wrists in the school restroom. Afterward, Turk found the video of Cutie online. At that moment, the ghost-playing girl called, saying she had found something strange in the memory card and asked him to take a look. Turk opened the video and discovered that the teacher had also entered the girls' restroom that morning. He immediately met Mind at the club, claiming he had found out who took the video. As expected, the teacher was still in the club. Turk confronted him with his phone, accusing him of filming Cutie in the restroom. Turk recorded a video of him holding a knife, forcing the teacher to admit to the filming. Just then, Tomboy and Mind arrived, and Mind told Turk that the teacher was actually Cutie's older brother and couldn't possibly be the one who filmed her. It turned out that the teacher had entered the girls' restroom just to see his sister. Now, Turk didn't want to investigate further, but the video of Cutie just couldn't be deleted no matter how many times he tried. It seemed like a hint for him to keep watching. So he reopened the video and indeed made a new discovery. He noticed that there were no traces of correction fluid on the wall of the restroom stall. So early on Saturday morning, he asked Mind to come to the girls' restroom, saying it was to help Cutie's spirit move on and find peace. This time, Mind brought Tomboy along. Just as the two of them entered the restroom, they were shocked to see bloody words on the mirror. "Why did you film the video?" The door was suddenly slammed shut. Scared, Mind couldn't move, while Tomboy desperately tried to break down the door. Then, the stall door where Cutie had ended her life began to shake, and Cutie's screams could be heard. "Why did you secretly film me?" Terrified, Mind collapsed on the floor, and Tomboy rushed over to help her, but the voice didn't stop. Mind screamed like a chicken and prayed for forgiveness, saying that she didn't mean for things to turn out like this. The voice stopped after that. The person who came out of the restroom was actually the ghost-playing girl holding a recording device. Turk had also entered the girl's restroom. He said to Mind that he had figured out she was the one who secretly filmed Cutie. It turned out that after scraping off the correction fluid, Turk found Cutie's name underneath. He guessed that Mind had done this to compete for the title of school beauty, and that's why he set up the scene just now. However, Mind denied filming the video. She only admitted to forwarding the video to get Cutie's points deducted. To protect her best friend, Tomboy lunged at Turk again, about to lose her temper, but she saw the ghost of Cutie in the mirror who had come for revenge. The others couldn't see the ghost of Cutie, so they just saw Tomboy waving her hands and begging for mercy. It turned out that Tomboy was deeply in love with Mind. To help her win, she secretly installed a camera in the restroom stall that Cutie often used. After filming the video, she posted it online. As expected, the video went viral, and Mind was elected School Beauty. However, Cutie couldn't bear the humiliation and took her own life. After learning the truth, Turk helped Tomboy up, but at that moment, Tomboy's face turned into Cutie's. Scared, Turk hurriedly pushed her heavy body away, but he used too much force, causing her to hit the wall and collapse into a pool of blood. All of this was recorded by the camera Turk had installed. The 9th story, titled Instinct, begins with a schoolgirl being in the bathroom, using her phone to play games while she took care of her smelly business. As the battery finally drained, she prepared to leave, but someone started pulling on the door. Panicked, she grabbed a makeshift weapon from her backpack and shouted she had a knife. The noise outside stopped abruptly. Scared, she peeked under the door only to see a hideous face staring back at her. The schoolgirl screamed like a chicken. Terrified, she wanted to call for help, but her phone was dead. Bracing herself, she opened the door and saw a plastic mannequin standing outside. Grabbing her backpack, she tried to leave but heard someone call her name. Turning around, she was astonished to see that the mannequin's head had moved. The bathroom door slammed shut, and when she looked back, the mannequin was gone. Curiously, she opened the stall doors to search for it, only for it to suddenly appear behind her. The mannequin seemed to come to life, its plastic hands grabbing her greasy face. The schoolgirl was so frightened that she ended up in the hospital. During break time, another student, Palm, was telling everyone about the ghost story that had happened at the school a few days earlier. All the girls were spooked, except for B, who didn't believe any of her ghostly bullshit. She bluntly said only students with poor grades would believe such stupid things. Annoyed, Palm stood up to argue with her, but the bell rang for class. She stormed off with her friend, the girl in glasses. During dance class, B couldn't help but stare at the mannequin rumored to move on its own. As she was staring, a long strand of hair suddenly stuck to her face. It turned out to be a prank by her friend Lady Bro, but B didn't react at all, which was disappointing. The teacher asked B why Palm and the girl in glasses were absent. Without thinking, B said they were skipping class. The teacher looked up and said meaningfully that if she wanted to get closer to others, learn to lie. B agreed humbly. After school, the sound of a door opening caught B's attention. She saw the mannequin through the slightly open door of the dance studio. Intrigued, she walked over, but heard someone coming upstairs. Losing interest, she continued on her way. As she passed the playground, B was drawn to a yellow flower growing in a crack between stones. She carefully moved the stone, transplanting the flower into a plastic cup. Lady Bro found her actions strange, but helped her put the stone back and walked home with her. It turned out that Lady Bro and B lived in the same apartment building. In the elevator, Lady Bro asked B where she had transferred from and why she had moved in the middle of the term. B remained silent, and when they reached her floor, she quickly said goodbye. B's home was practically a botanical garden. There were many flowers growing inside small bottles. There were even flowers in the refrigerator. Perhaps B found it easier to get along with plants. It wasn't long before Lady Bro sent a message inviting her to go out for dinner, but B declined, saying she had already eaten. At that moment, she caught a glimpse of the mannequin head she'd brought back from the dance studio. She took the head out of her bag, held it in her hands, and removed the wig. With a few firm thumps, she hit the head against the table, and dirt spilled from the back of the skull. As she reached in, she pulled out 2 teeth. Just then, her teacher called to remind her to make floating lanterns with her classmates the next day. B curiously asked if the spirit inside the mannequin was real. Her teacher neither confirmed nor denied it, reminding her not to waste time and energy on such matters. In the evening, B lay in bed and heard noises in her room. She tiptoed out of bed and closed the bedroom door. When she turned around, she saw someone lying under the blanket. Slowly, she pulled the blanket off, and a person wearing model clothes sat up laughing hysterically. The person looked exactly like her. Suddenly, her own arm turned into plastic. As the laughter continued, B looked into the mirror behind her and saw her face had transformed into a terrifying, ghostly visage. The mannequin had switched bodies with her. B jolted awake, realizing it was only a dream. She lay down to sleep again, but at that moment, Lady Bro called for her outside the door. Hiding the mannequin head, B opened the door. Lady Bro said she was frightened by the ghost story they discussed during the day and wanted to spend the night. They each slept on one side of the bed, but when Lady Bro placed her hand on B's body, B jolted up as if electrocuted, demanding to know what Lady Bro was doing. Scared, Lady Bro didn't dare to try again, and they both went to sleep peacefully. The next day, everyone was busy making floating lanterns in the classroom when the girl in glasses rushed in, asking if they knew about the missing mannequin head from the school. It had returned. Palm took the opportunity to scare B, warning her to be careful or she might end up like the schoolgirl as shown earlier. However, B replied that she had spoken to the schoolgirl, who was in the hospital due to a stomachache. Upon hearing this, the girls exchanged glances. It turned out that Palm had made up the story to scare everyone. B took the initiative to approach her classmates and suggested going home together after taking out the trash, but no one responded. She had no choice but to go downstairs by herself. The lights in the upstairs classroom suddenly went out. B walked up the stairs and reached the pitch-dark classroom door. Turning on the light, she ventured inside. Suddenly, the girl with glasses grabbed her leg, signaling her to be quiet. With a tearful tone, she whispered that after B had gone downstairs, all the other classmates had left. The remaining few had planned to play a prank on her. When they heard her coming up the stairs, they hid, but the prank went wrong when someone violently shook the door, calling their names and asking them to open up. But the voice wasn't from B. Immediately after, the doors began to shake simultaneously. Terrified and at a loss, the girls watched as the back door suddenly burst open. Palm ran out, and the mannequin model walked in. It jumped onto the desk in front of Lady Bro, calling her name. Frightened, Lady Bro ran out of the classroom, and the mannequin followed. As they were discussing this, the lights in the hallway suddenly went out, and a shadow flashed by. B chased after it. Ethereal music emanated from the dance studio. Just as she was about to push the door open, the girl with glasses stopped her. Desperate to save the others, B couldn't open the door, so she climbed onto the balcony outside the dance studio. She looked into the classroom and saw the mannequin with its clothes removed. Expressionless, Lady Bro wore the mannequin's clothes and danced eerily to the music. Entranced, B watched. Suddenly, the mannequin appeared and she dodged but accidentally fell off the balcony. The girls panicked, realizing their staged prank meant to scare B had taken a deadly turn. The girl with glasses was the first to run downstairs, trembling as she approached and confirmed B's death. The other 2 girls upstairs were horror-stricken. However, something strange happened. B actually got up from the ground, her school uniform stained with green liquid. She easily straightened her head with her hand. The girl with glasses was so scared she wet herself, crying and running for her shitty life. But B leaped forward, intercepting her and twisting her head. Silently apologizing, B let her fall. Witnessing this scene, Palm upstairs couldn't help but scream. B rushed to the sound and arrived at the balcony outside the dance studio. Lady Bro pleaded with her, promising not to reveal the secret and begging for mercy. In order to save her own life, she pushed her companion forward. In an instant, B's hand pierced Palm's body and blood splattered. Surprisingly, tears filled B's eyes. Lady Bro, panic-stricken, ran out of the school and encountered their teacher driving by. The teacher told Lady Bro to hide in the trunk and let her handle the situation. Soon, the teacher and B opened the trunk together. B told the teacher that Lady Bro knew their secret. Calmly, the teacher asked if only 3 people knew, then closed the trunk. It was a brand new day, and the teacher advised B to get closer to her classmates, but not to trust them easily. Today, there were 3 more mannequins in the dance studio. B stared at them and left in tears. Actually, B and the teacher were not humans. They were in cahoots, both plant spirits who had infiltrated the student circle. B didn't want to hurt anyone and wanted to be friends with the girls, but their prank forced her to reveal her true form. The things she took from the mannequin's head were ashes and teeth from the girls she had killed. In the end, the souls of the 3 girls were sealed inside the mannequins. B's bedroom was filled with plants, and her blood was green. She hadn't yet adapted to human interactions and had much to learn from her teacher, who had practiced for many years among humans. The 10th story, titled Stains, begins with a girl named Phuean furiously writing while scratching the surface of her desk with her fingernails. By the time she realizes it, her left fingertips are bleeding. Dazed, she closes her exam paper and walks out of the exam room. The invigilator sees her, and her test paper is filled with several pages of writing. In a shocking turn of events, Phuean suddenly leaps from the 2nd floor, landing in a pool of blood. Her eyes remain open even in death. Tong is a strong-willed girl whose parents used connections to transfer her to this all-girls school during her 2nd semester of high school. The head teacher doesn't seem to like Tong and commands her to change her high-end bag upon their first meeting. Tong disdainfully rolls her eyes at him. As Tong walks across the school field, she accidentally steps on a gooey substance. She follows the trail of the substance to her classroom, where the female teacher instructs her to find an empty seat. When she tries to sit down, the girl at the neighboring desk unfriendly occupies the seat with her backpack. Tong reluctantly sits next to another girl, cursing the dark substance that has stained her new socks. Upon hearing her, the other girls in the room cast sidelong glances at Tong. Confused, she asks if they were not allowed to curse in this school. A nearby girl timidly replies that students were not allowed to use dirty words. Before Tong can say anything else, the girl next to her plugs her ears. Tong gets up, and the female teacher sarcastically asks if she needs her parents to buy her a desk and chair. Tong shoots her a glare, pulls out an unused old desk and chair from a pile of clutter, and sits down. She sees an exam number sticker on the desk's edge and tears it off. Unconsciously, Tong starts scratching the desk with her fingernails. One morning, the principal is addressing the students on the field. Tong spots a girl standing on the 2nd floor, staring at her before turning away. Although curious, she doesn't think much about it. After all, the relationships between people in this school are cold, and it seems as if they only care about discipline with no human touch. After class, she goes to the rooftop alone for a break. A boy named Jack approaches her, asking how she got up there. Tong retorts how he ends up being in an all-girls school. Jack explains that his father works as a school guard. Seeing that he means no harm, she chats with him. Jack's parents both work at the school, and he lives there. Before leaving, Jack leaves the rooftop key for Tong. After a break, Tong prepares to leave when a girl with her head down brushes past her. She curiously tries to glance back, but there's no one around. Suddenly, she sees the girl on the rooftop. Fearing for her safety, Tong follows her onto the roof. She calls out to the girl and is shocked to find that the girl looks exactly like her. Then the girl jumps. Frightened, Tong screams and wakes up at her desk, wondering if it was all just a dream. After school, Tong searches for her backpack in the classroom. The female teacher walks in and tells her that the school doesn't allow branded backpacks. She instructs her to buy a new one from the school administration office first thing in the morning. Tong doesn't want to follow orders, so she finds a backpack in the pile of miscellaneous items at the back of the classroom, empties its contents onto the floor, and claims it for herself. When she leaves the building, she sees the sticky substance again. She looks up and turns to leave, but somehow it still sticks to her shoes. One day during class, she notices people looking back at her. She then realizes that she's been scratching the desktop with her hand, and her fingertips are bleeding. Immediately after, a thick liquid drips from her head. She puts her hand in her mouth and pulls out 2 fallen teeth. The teacher and students look at her in shock. Suddenly, her arm breaks, and she starts vomiting blood. Tong is terrified, but a classmate helps her, and everything returns to normal. Before she can figure it out, she's called to the principal's office. The principal shows her a video of her on the rooftop, but she seems to have forgotten about it and wonders if that day was just a dream. The principal tells her to review the school rules. At lunchtime, the classmate sits in front of Tong with a tray and asks her what happened during class. Tong gets up to leave, annoyed, but notices the girls whispering about her. It seems that the conversation in the office has spread throughout the school. She sees Jack and quickly goes over to ask if they met on the rooftop a few days ago. After receiving a positive answer, she breathes a sigh of relief. However, Jack suddenly asks her what she stepped on. She looks at the black footprints she left behind and replies that it's the substance in front of the building. Jack asks if she can see the stain, and she says it's been there for 2 or 3 days, but no one has cleaned it up. Jack then tells her that a student terminated herself by jumping off the building last semester. Someone tried to clean up the bloodstains, but couldn't. No one had ever stepped on or stuck it to their shoes, as if they couldn't see it. Tong becomes curious about the student who took her own life, but Jack doesn't know the details and suggests she ask her classmates. One day, Tong suddenly collapses onto the black stain at school and can't get up. An ambulance is called and she's taken to the hospital. When she wakes up, the head teacher says she fell from the 2nd floor. He then asks her how she knows about Proi. Tong is bewildered. The head teacher shows her a test paper written by her, stating that she did nothing wrong. Tong feels a chill down her spine because she knows nothing about these events. The principal comes in to talk to her. Tong admits she doesn't remember anything. The principal is relieved, explaining that her fall could affect the school's reputation. She must tell the school board and reporters that it was an accident. Back at school, Tong asks her classmate about Proi. The girl says that Proi was an excellent student in all subjects, but had an affair with the physics teacher leading to pregnancy. The physics teacher was fired because of this. Tong finds Proi's homepage and sees that she often expressed ending her own life on Facebook. During the principal's speech, Tong's desk and chair are suddenly thrown from the 2nd floor by an unknown person. Afterward, she struggles to drag the desk back to the 2nd floor classroom without anyone's help. A classmate informs her that the desk and chair once belonged to Proi. Feeling uneasy, Tong asks Jack to switch desks and tells him about the incident with the desk falling from the sky. She then mentions that she might be now haunted by Proi's ghost. That night, as soon as Tong lies down, she hears a noise outside. She goes downstairs and opens the door, only to find herself back at school. At the classroom door, she sees a ghost with a broken skull and blood all over her head, scratching the desk with her fingers. Frightened, Tong runs back, but all the corridor lights suddenly go out, leaving only the overhead light flickering. She's incredibly nervous and catches a glimpse of the ghost crawling out of the classroom. With no other option, she runs forward in the dark, but ends up back where she started. She turns to go downstairs, but thick blood covers the stairs. Desperate, Tong grabs an axe from the fire hose box, returns to the classroom door, but the ghost is gone. The door in front suddenly springs open and a desk slides out. As she's trying to figure out what to do, she notices the words on her desk. She approaches and reads, "Leave." Angrily, she swings the axe, yelling she won't leave. The broken desk oozes black liquid, and she hears a girl's sobbing. Turning her head, she sees the ghost crouching in the corner, crying while looking at a piece of paper. The ghost suddenly turns, staring with pale eyes, and lunges at Tong. She raises her arm to shield her face, gasping for air. The ghost disappears. She goes to pick up the paper from the corner, but a hand rests on her shoulder. The sky suddenly turns to daylight and she sees Jack. Tong jumps into his ghost-proof arms. A girl who enters sees this, and the head teacher calls Tong's parents and Jack into the office. The head teacher doesn't have any evidence, but still hopes the romantically involved Tong will drop out. Furious, she storms into the office and accuses them of treating Proi the same way, forcing her to drop out upon hearing she was pregnant. The head teacher denies forcing Proi out, so Tong pulls out Proi's dropout application and questions the clear wording on it, pointing out that it says she wasn't pregnant. The head teacher admits that some things were just rumors. Tong says whether they believe her or not, she was haunted by Proi's ghost last night. She didn't understand why the ghost was after her before, but now realizes it wanted her to leave the terrible school. She says it doesn't matter if the head teacher doesn't want her to drop out, as she knows they hate her now. She'll solve it herself. She then leaves the office, and soon students report someone is about to jump from the school building. When the head teacher arrives, Tong steps back, saying that now he has a reason to make her leave this school. With that, she walks away. But then she notices that the head teacher's shoes are now stained with the black substance, indicating that Proi will seek revenge on him. The 11th story, titled Roommate, begins with a girl, Nina, who is a Thai-American girl temporarily staying at her aunt's place in Thailand. Unfortunately, her uncle takes advantage of the situation by sneaking into her bedroom late at night with ill intentions. Nina records the incident and shows it to her aunt. Her aunt asks Nina to delete the video, and they promptly move out of the house. The beautiful Nina catches the attention of some troublemakers as she arrives at her new apartment with her aunt. Frightened, she gets into the elevator. Nina asks why her aunt won't send her back to the United States, but her aunt informs her that her mother has just passed away and she is now her only remaining relative. Nina's mood plummets upon hearing this. After settling into the apartment, she apologizes for her mother's death bringing such an inconvenience. Her aunt sighs, mentioning that Nina's father once lived there trying to put on a show. He had been a magician, but he failed. Pictures on the wall reveal her father's past. Having settled Nina in, her aunt leaves, telling her to stay for now and they'll discuss things later. With both of her parents now gone, Nina understandably feels depressed. In the evening, she confides in her best friend back in the US about her distress. Suddenly, a power outage occurs. As Nina fumbles in the dark for her phone, she knocks over a box of eggs she had just bought. Not bothering to clean up the mess, she lies down and looks at photos of her parents on her phone, shedding tears. At 3:30 a.m., Nina is awoken by some noises. She can barely make out a dark figure standing in the room with a pair of large feet on the floor. When she looks again, the figure is gone. She covers her head with a blanket and lies down until her alarm goes off at 6 a.m. She realizes that it was just a set of clothes hanging there, and maybe that's what she saw at night. As she goes to brush her teeth, she discovers her toothbrush is damp. The eggs she had knocked over the night before were also mysteriously cleaned up, leaving just an empty egg carton with some residue. She searches the place, finding a dark hallway leading to a sunlit room filled with furniture covered in white sheets, resembling a storage room. Frightened, she retraces her steps. Nina decides to lock the door connecting the kitchen to the hallway, then closes the kitchen window and leaves the apartment. On her way out, she picks up a flyer for a flight to the United States. She wants to leave this spooky place. After returning to the apartment, Nina started taking inventory of her belongings. No matter how much she counted, selling everything wouldn't be enough money, so she decided to sell some old clothes in her wardrobe. In the evening, she told her best friend that she wanted to go back to the United States. Although she could still sense her parents' presence here, it wasn't a reason for her to stay. Her friend asked if she was talking about their ghosts since they had passed away. Nina wasn't sure herself. Her friend suggested that the strange occurrences might just be her imagination, and that she should install a camera to see if she was sleepwalking and causing them. Nina didn't take it seriously until she discovered that all the milk and drinks in the fridge had been consumed and only one banana was left. She started taking the situation more seriously. The kitchen door lock was intact, and Nina felt a chill down her spine. She decided to follow her friend's advice and put a camera in the wardrobe facing her bed, then went to the bathroom to wash up. In the bathroom, she found her toothbrush had been used by someone else. Disgusted, Nina threw it into the trash. She lay in bed talking to her parents' photos before plugging in her phone to charge and turning off the light. In the middle of the night, a dark hand reached out to touch her face and hair. Nina opened her eyes suddenly, reaching for her phone on the bedside table. The phone was gone, but she found it on the bed with the screen on. Curiously, she looked through the photos and found several pictures of herself sleeping. Nina turned on the light, accidentally kicking the hairpin she had put in the bathroom before going to bed. Now she was even more frightened, and she sought refuge by sitting next to the security guard downstairs. The next day, Nina took all her valuable belongings and exchanged them for a plane ticket back to New York. In the evening, a few creepy guys followed her, and she hurriedly got into the elevator. She finally made it back to her room safely. As soon as she entered, she locked the door with a chain and started packing her bags. Suddenly, she remembered the camera on top of the wardrobe. She sat on the bed and started watching the footage. A strange creature appeared on the screen. It was skinny and twisted, standing up before suddenly facing the camera. Nina was so scared she threw the camera away. Nina reached her phone under the bed and took a photo. Luckily, there were only some eggshells under there. She grabbed her keys to leave, but they accidentally fell under the bed. She fetched a knife from the kitchen and used it to reach the keys. However, the door lock wouldn't open. Nina felt weak and slumped down on the couch by the door. She turned on the camera again and continued watching. To her horror, the creature was hiding in the very same couch she was sitting on. Nina screamed and frantically stabbed the couch with the knife. She then ran into the kitchen, opened the door lock, and rushed into the adjacent room. To her surprise, there were also food remnants on the floor. Nina broke down and hid in the corner of the balcony, calling her aunt. But due to a bad signal, her aunt couldn't hear her and had to hang up. Now Nina realized that she could only rely on herself. After calming down, she walked back to the living room and looked at the couch she had stabbed. The creature wasn't there. She went into another room and lifted the white cloth covering a table, but still found nothing. Then she approached a wardrobe, her heart pounding with fear as she opened the doors. Inside, she found the props and design sketches her father had used for a boneless creature performance. Pulling open a drawer beside it, she discovered a design sketch of the boneless creature. It seemed like the plan was to put it in a box for a performance. Suddenly, a boneless figure flashed by behind her. Nina mustered the courage to go back to the living room and shouted at it to come out, saying that she knew it had been living here before her. After some noise, the boneless creature emerged from a corner. Nina asked whether the creature took photos of her because it liked her. With that, she pushed a suitcase towards the creature and asked whether it wanted to come with her because she was leaving tomorrow. The boneless creature seemed to understand, and with a couple of clicks, it dislocated its arms and crawled into the suitcase, zipping it up by itself. Nina walked over, pulling the suitcase, and said it was much lighter than she thought. But she suddenly told it to go back to its original home. Then, Nina resolutely threw the suitcase containing the boneless creature off the balcony, trying to kill it. Soon, blood oozed out of the suitcase. Dragging her other suitcase, Nina fled the apartment as if escaping. She boarded an airport shuttle bus and, exhausted, leaned against her suitcase and fell asleep. However, what Nina didn't notice was that her father's magic design sketch originally featured twin boneless creatures. At that moment, a boneless figure with red nail polish slowly extended a hand from Nina's suitcase, indicating Nina's tragic fate due to her betrayal to the creature. The 12th story, titled Sound on the Line, begins with a student, At, having transferred to his current high school 3 months ago. During class, the bully leader of a bully gang crumpled a piece of paper into a ball and threw it at the student in front, Timid Boy. Seeing no reaction from Timid Boy, bully leader became bolder and wrapped an eraser inside the paper ball. Bully leader then handed the paper ball to At, signaling him to throw it. At knew that bullying Timid Boy was wrong, but in order to fit in with bully leader and his friends, he reluctantly took the paper ball and threw it at the back of Timid Boy's head. Timid Boy looked back at with anger, but dared not speak up. At felt guilty inside. After school, they trapped Timid Boy in the classroom again. Bully leader knew that Timid Boy was timid, so he took out a lighter and set Timid Boy's uniform on fire. Hearing Timid Boy's frightened wails, they laughed and played happily. One bully boy even covered Timid Boy's mouth to prevent him from making any noise. At couldn't stand it and quickly grabbed a textbook to extinguish the flames. This act displeased bully leader and his gang, who felt that At had ruined their fun. They let go of Timid Boy and left the classroom. In reality, Timid Boy lived in the apartment building opposite At's. At deliberately avoided him because he didn't know how to face Timid Boy. When Timid Boy called out to At, he pretended not to hear and didn't dare to look back. One day, a bully teammate said that the school's broadcasting room was going to be demolished. Rumor had it that a student had once killed himself there, but the bully girl said that the broadcasting room was being demolished only because the equipment inside was broken. The ghost story happened afterward. Sometimes after school, music would play from the broadcasting room, and those who heard it would encounter misfortune. As they argued, bully leader planned to use Timid Boy as a guinea pig to test the truth of the rumor. After school, they dragged Timid Boy to the broadcasting room. The room smelled moldy. The bully girl pressed the buttons on the mixing console, but nothing happened. Bully leader found a cello in a cabinet and started playing it haphazardly. The bully teammate went even further, using his foot to pluck the strings. Timid Boy tried to escape, but was blocked. He said fearfully that they were definitely done for if they did this. Bully leader didn't believe him and continued to tease Timid Boy. Unexpectedly, Timid Boy fought back, butt-heading bully leader in the face. Bully leader couldn't let it go and knocked Timid Boy down in a few moves. At that moment, the sound of a cello came from the speakers. Seeing Timid Boy scared out of his wits, bully leader left him alone and took the others out, locking the door behind them. Timid Boy cried and shouted inside, begging to be let out. At worriedly asked if they were really going to leave him there. Bully leader didn't answer. After a brief silence, Timid Boy suddenly broke the glass on the door, desperately begging to be let out. At tried to plead with bully leader, but to no avail. As the others were about to leave, Timid Boy called out At's name, begging him to let him out. At was torn, but ultimately left Timid Boy behind. In the end, all they could hear was Timid Boy's desperate scream that he would kill all of them. Upon arriving home, At was filled with unease. At that moment, the same cello music from the broadcast played in the apartment. Panicking, At rushed to the living room, only to find that the speakers weren't even plugged in. Then there was a series of loud banging on the door. A bloodied Timid Boy crawled in, viciously stabbing at At with shards of glass. Suddenly, At woke up, realizing that it had all been a dream. The next day, Timid Boy didn't attend class. The language teacher asked the students to look for her, but in the middle of the exam, At made an excuse to sneak away to the broadcasting room to check on Timid Boy. By that time, though, a fence had already been set up in front of the broadcasting room. Seizing a moment when no one was around, At tried to sneak in through a gap, but was stopped by the security guard. Later, the group went to the teacher's dormitory to recite their lessons. The bully teammate finished his exam first and waited downstairs. Soon, everyone heard the familiar cello music again. The language teacher was frightened, her hand trembling as she held her pen. Eventually, she decided to end the exam and urged everyone to go home immediately. Before anyone could react, she had left, as if scared of something. As they went downstairs, the group was drawn to a series of loud crashing sounds. Stealthily approaching, they saw a male student fly out from a door, his head striking the stone steps and blood pouring out. At nervously went over and discovered that it was the bully teammate. The police quickly arrived at the scene, determining that the boy had died from a broken neck caused by a strong impact while locked in the classroom. The security guard was puzzled, as it was only 7 o'clock and he hadn't locked the doors yet. The dean suddenly asked if any students had been playing with the broadcasting equipment, since they had heard music coming from it. The security guard replied that he had checked and no one had touched the instruments. The bully girl remained silent, and everyone else was too afraid to say anything. Afterwards, the dean and the security guard emerged from the broadcasting room. Worried about Timid Boy, At casually shouted if anybody was there. The dean quickly came out and warned them not to spread rumors and to go home immediately. The bully boy angrily stopped At, blaming him for speaking out of turn. But at that moment, all At wanted to know was whether Timid Boy was alive or dead. Bully leader glared at At, saying this had nothing to do with ghosts, and he let Timid Boy go last night. Still, At couldn't shake his concern, and went to Timid Boy's house to check. There were no lights on, and the burnt school uniform still hung on the door. After calling out and receiving no response, At entered the house on his own. Timid Boy was nowhere to be found. At then went to the bathroom, his heart pounding as he lifted the shower curtain. He found nothing, but when he turned around, he saw the walls covered in red words threatening to kill him. Terrified, At fled. The next day, the cello music played again through the broadcast. At hurried to the public relations office, confirming that the sound wasn't coming from there. Furthermore, he saw the teachers trying to stop the broadcast. It seemed the sound was coming from the broadcasting room. At ran over to bully leader to make sure everyone was safe, but suddenly saw the bully boy throw the ball he was holding and, like a madman, charge towards the goalpost on the soccer field. No matter how much everyone called out to him, he didn't respond. He smashed his head into the goalpost and died on the spot. Everyone rushed to the bully boy's side, his eyes wide open but no longer breathing, sending chills down their spines. The following day, the bully girl was forcibly driven to school by her father. She looked around and saw that all the students had also put on headphones. At that moment, someone mentioned there was an argument happening in the teaching building. At followed to check it out and saw the language teacher acting like a madman, pushing desks and chairs towards the iron fence in front of the broadcasting room, demanding the school dismantle it. The hysterical teacher claimed that everyone would get their just desserts. The dean stepped forward and warned her to stop her superstition. But the language teacher didn't care anymore, pushing through the crowd and leaving. At looked at the empty seats in the classroom, feeling uneasy. Just then, music started playing from the broadcast again, and the students quickly put on their headphones, rushing down the stairs and outside. Bully leader tried to calm down his panicked girlfriend, the bully girl, but she wouldn't listen and shook off his hand. At that moment, the bully girl threw down her backpack and, as if possessed, forcefully smashed her head into a wooden door. As blood began to flow from her head, bully leader tried to restrain her, but the bully girl knocked bully leader to the ground. Clearly terrified, bully leader could only watch as the bully girl continued to slam her head against the door until it broke open and she fell inside. Staring at his girlfriend lying in a pool of blood, bully leader couldn't help but cry as the bully girl's lifeless body was taken away. The top priority now was to find Timid Boy, but bully leader angrily grabbed At by the collar, warning him to keep quiet before running off on his own. At chased after him, and bully leader broke the lock and entered the broadcasting room. He found the cello and, in a fit of rage, smashed it to the ground. At still believed they should find Timid Boy, but bully leader angrily said that he had personally let Timid Boy go the night before. He mentioned that the language teacher had told him she had witnessed a student end his own life in the broadcasting room, all because of this cello. Infuriated, Bully Leader threw the cello to the ground. At tried to stop him and pushed Bully Leader in the process. Unexpectedly, a sharp piece of wood pierced Bully Leader's neck, killing him. Terrified, At didn't have time to react before the broadcasting room door was closed. Desperate, he banged on the door, screaming for help, but no one could hear him. At that moment, the cello music started playing again. Slowly turning his head, At saw a naked, bleeding, overweight student playing the cello. Suddenly, the sound stopped, and the student rolled his eyes back, staring at At. Scared out of his mind, At tried to break free by slamming his chubby body against the door. After repeatedly ramming the door, he managed to break it open and stumbled out, bloodied and bruised. However, just as he did so, the student dragged him back inside, indicating his tragic fate. The 13th story, titled Blue Night, begins with Tam lying on the ground, his face covered in injuries. A sense of helplessness was evident in his eyes. It was as if someone had just roughed him up. After a while, he struggled to get up, staggering to the bathroom to clean his wounds. He spat out the blood in his mouth, changed his clothes, and then headed to an abandoned swimming pool. He sat by the pool, lost in thought. The large patches of moss on the stone walls were somewhat eerie, making Tam feel uncomfortable. Suddenly, a figure flashed past inside the adjacent house. Tam followed, pushing open the door to find a boy slightly older than him. A smile spread across his face. The boy was named Phuem, and he and Tam were a pair of homosexuals who had met online. Today was their first real-life meeting. Because it was their first encounter, Tam was a bit shy and awkward. It was up to the more mature Phuem to keep the conversation going. Phuem told Tam that this place was eerie. Years ago, several children had drowned in the pool outside, and since then, it had been haunted by vicious ghosts. Tam thought Phuem might be making up stories as an icebreaker, so he didn't take it to heart. Soon, the two overcame their initial awkwardness and got closer to each other. Afterwards, they sat casually by the pool and talked. Phuem told Tam that he didn't care about his family's opinions and judgment anymore. He now worked in an auto repair shop and didn't need to rely on them for money. Despite the constant smile on his face, his words revealed an undeniable sadness. After listening, Tam was silent for a moment before sadly revealing that his mother would cry every time his sexual orientation was mentioned. It was as if he had committed a great wrong. Then Phuem asked about the injuries on Tam's face and whether they were from his parents. Tam explained that he had been beaten up by classmates and added that his parents wouldn't hit him in the face. Phuem could sense the bitterness in these words, and his smile faded, replaced by a thoughtful expression. After a while, Phuem dragged Tam into the pool for a swim. The two had a great time in the water. Tam let out a smile and followed Phuem's lead and submerged himself completely in the water. Just as Phuem had said, looking up from underwater, it was like seeing a new world, free from the judgment of others. He felt a relaxation he had never experienced before. If possible, he would love to stay in this illusory but wonderful world forever. However, Tam had to return to the real world eventually, a world filled with family members who didn't understand him and classmates who always bullied him. The day after meeting his parents, he was beaten by a group of boys over a debt. When he returned home, his mother noticed the injuries on his face but didn't show any concern, as if it was a common occurrence. She continued to question him about his choice in boys rather than girls, expressing disappointment and accusing him of being ungrateful for the care she provided. As she spoke, tears welled up in her eyes. Seeing his mother cry, Tam panicked. He knelt down, apologizing and promising to change, but he could see in his mother's eyes that she didn't believe a word he said. The next day, Phuem came to find Tam. They sat on the rooftop, chatting. Tam poured out his frustrations to Phuem, saying his family had never believed in him. Whenever something went missing at home, they would accuse him of being the thief. They had labeled him a bad kid. Phuem lay down and rested his head on Tam's lap. He lamented about how people like them were discriminated against due to their choices, even by their own families. Unless they achieved something great, they were treated as worthless. These words touched Tam's heart. He held Phuem's hand, feeling that Phuem was the only person in the world who could truly understand him. In the evening, Tam was sleeping when he was awakened by a knock on his door. Upon opening the door, he found his older brother summoning him to the living room. Once there, his brother looked at him with disdain. Their mother bluntly asked Tam where he hid his father's pistol that he stole. Tam denied stealing the gun, but as soon as the words left his mouth, his irritable brother lost his temper, slapped him, and scolded that he had never done anything good. It must have been him who stole it. Tam, filled with tears, loudly questioned his mother why it was always his fault when something happens in this house, and challenged her that she clearly knew he didn't steal the money last time. His mother seemed somewhat guilty but said nothing more. The next day, Tam found Phuem, who was practicing shooting in the wild. He timidly asked if he had found a buyer for the gun. It turned out that he really had stolen his father's gun, intending to sell it for money. Phuem asked why he needed to do it hurriedly. Tam wanted to press further but held back and left. That night, Tam didn't return home, but went to Phuem's place instead. They shared a room and Phuem gently stroked Tam's scars. The scene shifted to Tam sitting by the pool he and Phuem had visited before, looking worriedly ahead. He then saw humanoid moss on the stone wall, revealing a look of fear. Moments later, he jumped into the pool trying to wipe off the moss, but no matter how hard he rubbed, it wouldn't come off. The next moment, he suddenly sank into the water and was about to drown when Phuem arrived just in time to rescue an unconscious Tam. When Tam woke up, Phuem warned him never to swim here alone because, according to legend, people who swim in this pool get taken by ghosts. Seeing Tam's puzzled face, Phuem told him about a real incident. He said a boy once disappeared mysteriously while swimming here. Months later, his decaying body was found in a nearby restroom. The police were puzzled because they had searched the pool area multiple times without finding the body. Phuem explained that the missing boy had been hidden by the ghosts, so people couldn't see him. Upon hearing this, Tam was terrified but didn't want Phuem to think he was a coward, so he pretended to be calm. Phuem saw through his act and suggested they visit the restroom where the body was found, saying this is the only way to confront his fears. Otherwise, he would be scared of this incident for the rest of his life. With no other choice, Tam followed Phuem to the restroom. The dimly lit restroom emitted a foul smell. They covered their noses and walked in, noticing a large patch of moss on the wall that resembled a human heart, much like the moss in the pool. They pushed open the first stall door and found it empty. They sighed in relief and exchanged glances. Just then, a stall door behind them opened on its own, making a strange noise. Scared, Tam and Phuem turned around to find a grotesque corpse slumped in the stall. Shockingly, it was the body of Tam's older brother. They panicked and ran outside to calm their nerves. Phuem asked Tam who he thought killed his brother. Tam shook his head in confusion and said he didn't know. Phuem suggested they return that night to dispose of the body while nobody was watching. At night, the two of them, armed with flashlights and bags, arrived at the swimming pool. However, they made a horrifying discovery. The body had vanished without a trace. Tam was petrified, not knowing if it was his hallucination, but Phuem told him the body might have been hidden by a ghost. Tam was even more frightened and at a loss. Phuem then suggested they clean up the place and leave quickly. They both busied themselves with the task. After a while, Tam suddenly felt something was amiss because it was too quiet, and he couldn't hear any noise from Phuem. He called out to Phuem in a trembling voice but received no response. Tam pulled out his phone and used it as a light to search for Phuem, but suddenly a pair of ghostly hands stretched out from behind and covered his eyes. The scene shifted, and Tam woke up from his dream, a tear rolling down his cheek. The dream had been so realistic that Tam had difficulty distinguishing between the dream and reality. He touched Phuem, who was sleeping next to him, as if to confirm his existence. Phuem woke up under Tam's touch, saw his sad face, and gently wiped away his tears. In the next moment, tears welled up in Phuem's eyes as well. The next day, Phuem brought Tam to meet a group of gangsters. It turned out that Tam was trying to hire a hitman. No wonder he was so eager to steal his father's gun to sell for money, all for this purpose. Phuem explained to the gangster that Tam's family land had been swindled, so he wanted to kill his enemy and take back the land. Although they had made some money by selling the gun, it was far from enough to pay the hitman's fee. They also offered several Buddha statues and a small truck as payment, promising to sell the land once they reclaimed it and use the proceeds to pay the remaining fee. After some haggling, Phuem finally persuaded the gangsters to accept the deal. Not long after he returned home, Tam discovered that his parents and brother were brutally murdered. He looked at his family members lying in a pool of blood with an emotionless face, as if everything was within his expectations. It turned out that the hitman he had hired was not to kill some enemy, but to kill his own family. He despised his parents for their favoritism. It was always him who had to take the blame, even though his brother had done wrong too. He also despised his brother for his lack of fraternal affection, only responding to him with brutal fists and disdainful eyes. All of this was because his sexual orientation was not accepted or understood by his family. Unable to bear the injustice from his family any longer, he chose to fight back in a drastic way. The scene shifted to Tam, who was sitting blankly by the river. Phuem came over and asked him if he was okay. Tam asked him to remember when they first met. Phuem taught him to sink into the water and look up. Now, he wanted to experience that feeling again. So the two of them, hand in hand and with smiles on their faces, walked into the deeper part of the river and fell backwards into the water. Tam then saw the pure blue world under the water. This time, he wanted to stay there forever, never to return to the real and painful world. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.